Okay, it's November 25th, 2025. The town board of the town of Estes Park now is in session with our regular town board meeting. Anyone who'd like to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with us, you may do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll move on to agenda approval. It's a short agenda tonight. Well, that's a relative term. Better be careful what I say. There's only a couple items on it. Are there any changes or additions, or can I have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
I second the motion.
Trustee Hazelton moved to approve the agenda as written. Trustee Eigel seconded. We can vote. The agenda is approved as written. We're into the general public comment for members of the public section. General public comment is for items not on the agenda. Also, any comment on quasi-judicial items must be reserved for the appropriate public hearing. Public comment is not a question and answer period. And if you are unable to make a comment today, you certainly can submit comments through letters or emails to the board, and we do read all of those. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment on items not on the agenda? Yeah, you'll come up to the podium here. You'll have 3 minutes, and you will state your name and address.
Sure, come right up here in front of the podium.
And I also have a letter from my neighbor, so I don't know if I can read that separately or if that's included in my 3 minutes.
No, that would be included in your comments, but she can send that in to us through the town clerk.
And if I have time, I would love to read it. She's disabled, and I would love to read it.
Well, anyway, I'll start the 3 minutes, and that's what you have.
Okay. How do I?
Oh, just go ahead.
I'm good.
It's okay. It's getting you.
Okay, I can do as best that I can. Okay. Thank you for listening. My name is Karen. I live at 157 Cleve Street. 12 humans, 3 dogs, and 2 cats reside inside the historic building, which originally served as early Estes Park's ice house. All of us residents are quite content living where we do. We are long-term, year-round workers, valuable members of this community. Many of us walk to work. We are doing what we can to live simply and conscientiously. The building is so well insulated that it's making me nervous, the time clock. So well insulated that I don't use heat in the winter and my apartment stays cool in the summer. Estes Park Housing Authority owns the building. Scott and Wendy have treated me very well. They are understanding, always available, and accommodating. Lately, our home has felt less like a sanctuary and more like living constantly under threat. Grinding metal, jackhammering, welding, dust, dirt, grime, noise, dirty windows, cement dust on my pillowcase, trucks, tractors, and machinery in and out all day. Feeling uncomfortable as I get dressed and put on makeup in my bedroom near the window as I've always done. Now, construction workers traipse about. It should be very obvious the extreme toll this has taken on us current residents. My personal path towards healing took a nosedive this summer due to the nonstop unpleasant living conditions. Made it impossible to gain back a positive, healthy, mental, emotional, and physical state of being. We have been surrounded by construction destruction for over 2 years. During the Cleve Street redo, the machines were parked on the east side of our building. A steamroller was left running for more than 24 hours, blowing diesel fuel into the window of my elderly disabled neighbor. Also, construction work has been ongoing at the old church shops, which is directly adjacent to us, for years. Most recently, several businesses were demolished. These buildings were in front of us. We have suffered immediate health issues due to the environment
We have
now.
30 seconds left.
Can I have like 1 more minute?
What you'll, I'll
30
pause
seconds?
for a second here, but what you'll be able to do, you can submit all of
Oh my
these,
God.
and
Okay,
they
I'm
will
gonna
be,
skip. I'm gonna skip back.
yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Oh, my God. Where in nature is this plan? Where are the elk whom roam through our village? Do they stand a chance in this elaborate new vision? What about the marmot who lives in the nooks and crannies in the rock on the side of the hill in my backyard? What about him? Although change is important, so is continuity. I'm not opposed to change and improvement. I have high hopes for the Beetle Art pop-up space, as well as the Stanley Chocolate Factory. The redo of Cleve Street turned out nicely. The colors perfectly complement our building. I am advocating preserving what few pieces of Estes Park we still have. One of these pieces of history that fortunately still is here and still stands.
Karen, our time is up. However, all of these comments, your complete comments, can be submitted to us in
Okay.
writing through the
Thanks.
town clerk. And they can also, you can also send them to the town clerk such that they will be
But did you
posted.
get, did you go?
They will be posted on the public forum
So
where
I'm to shut up
anyone
right
in the
now?
universe can read them, and the trustees will receive them directly and are required to read them. It's part of their job. And I would also recommend with the letter from your neighbor also. And we've also received many letters in regard to this and had some interaction on
But my
these
time
too.
to actually speak before all of you is just up. I can't talk anymore.
No, we're done with this comment.
Thank you
Are
for
there
listening.
other public comments
Yes.
for items not on the agenda? Yes? And we've been enforcing our public comments a little better because we had several board sessions where we had kind of extreme overrun, and it was just unfair to other individuals. So we've been trying to be more disciplined on it. And so name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
I'll be brief. I moved in a year and a half ago, very comfortable place to live. When I moved in, the lot next door was covered with asphalt. Cleve Street is a wind tunnel, okay? I lived there for a year and had no problems. I have asthma. When they started tearing up, when they ripped up the asphalt and whatever they were doing and the chemicals they're using and whatever next door, my window faces that lot. I ended up in the hospital a week ago, almost dying, and I was told that it was from an irritant. I have had no problems since I lived there until they tore up that lot. And from that moment on, I've had problems breathing. So I don't know what's going on over there or what they're using. I don't know if they had to file for a permit or go through any permission on what they were going to use. But whatever it is bad, okay? I'm now on oxygen, okay? And I don't want to be at war with anybody, but you know what? I really would like to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other?
Can I conclude with these?
Yeah. Do you have comments? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I'm Sean Casey
and
Campbell.
remember
I also
to-
live on Cleve Street.
What was the name?
Sean Casey Campbell.
Okay, great.
And I'm calling this the tenants of 157 Cleve Street address of unsafe construction. Okay, so I wrote this up just in a quick synopsis. And a lot of it has to do with what these ladies just said too. So every day, the relentless sound of the drilling, hammering, and the machinery disrupts our daily lives. It really does. Turning our once peaceful community into a hub of noise and chaos. Yeah, that's a little bit, overboard. We, the tenants of 157 Cleve Street, okay, are out here against the nonstop construction work that is affecting not only our peace, but also our health, as Nikki just talked about. The ongoing construction projects, which started without prior notice or consideration for our well-being, has made it difficult for many of us to live comfortably in our homes. The noise pollution is not just an inconvenience, it has led to increased stress levels, disrupted sleep, and has exacerbated health issues for some residents, especially those with pre-existing conditions like respiratory illness, anxiety, and insomnia. I'm one of those. Moreover, the construction work often begins early in the morning and continues late into the afternoon. I've worked construction most of my life. I understand how that goes, but still. But it leaves little room for relief, and the dust and debris generated by the construction poses additional health risks, particularly for the elderly and disabled living in the building, as I've already added. Despite our numerous attempts to seek relief through the landlord and local authorities, our grievances have fallen on deaf ears, as far as I'm concerned. It is clear that our concerns are not being taken seriously and the well-being of the tenants is being neglected. We kind of feel that way, guys. I'm sorry. We appreciate what you do for the town, but we do kind of feel neglected right now. And to mitigate these adverse effects, we demand an immediate cessation of all construction activities until adequate measures can be put in place to minimize disruption and ensure our health and safety, more importantly. This includes the implementing of restricted construction hours, installing noise and dust mitigation systems, more importantly, and providing timely updates and clear communication, even more importantly, with us, the tenants, regarding the projects themselves. I use that as plural. Like I said, we had no notice of this. And when we did have notice, I got a little Crayola picture of the plan, and that was not a notice.
And we have a half minute left.
So I'm almost done. Thank you, sir. So we call on the local council, you guys, okay, and the construction companies to prioritize the livelihoods and health of our residents on Cleve Street over the pursuit of profits and timelines. Please, come on, guys. We too are locals. We too also provide for this community. These ladies work harder than I do. In Estes Park year round. Okay, so, and we're just seeking a loud voice and to hear a clear message that tenant well-being and the healthy living conditions of the residents of Estes
We're
Park
at time now.
cannot and should not be
I'm going to have to end the
I
public.
appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Thank you for your
Thank
comment.
you, guys. Have a good night.
Are there other public comments for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move forward to town board comments and liaison reports. I'm going to start with Trustee Brown.
I have nothing, believe it or not.
Thank you. Trustee Hazelton.
Just one item tonight, and I want to thank you for coming to public comment. Appreciate you understanding the limits, and definitely looking forward to getting the follow-up. Just one comment, the Better to Go dinner for restorative justice. I've talked about it before, but Thursday, December 11th is that. The deadline to order is by December 4th, so next Thursday. You can order a delicious meal from Mama Rosa's. You can support restorative justice and have a nice cozy evening. So I really encourage folks to look for dinner that night on the 11th. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Youngland.
Nothing for me tonight, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Sinek.
Just a short one. Trustee Hazelton and I had a trustee talk this past week. Most of the topics were on development. Interesting, there were people who were talking about development and how we shouldn't be changing Estes Park too much. And there's other people that were looking for workforce housing and what we were doing about it. So kind of the two different assets in town were there at the meeting, and other than that, I can't really think of anything major other discussion. Oh, we talked about the post office parking, and then also possibility of a wildlife plan to come to this board at some point. So that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Lancaster.
Oh, I have at least 45 minutes. Just for Kirby. No, I attended the ribbon cutting at the remodeled shop at the museum last week. That was great. It's nice to see the improvements of the museum. Attended the planning commission meeting last Tuesday. They did a good job, I thought, on handling a difficult issue that's going to come before us sometime in the near future. I also attended the 16th Annual National Philanthropy Day out at the Y. That's always a fun event. It's great to see the people that contribute in this community and people give of their time, talent, and treasure for the community. And the Y puts on a great show there. So thank you for everybody for that. And the tree lighting on Saturday was a lot of fun too. It was one of the warmest I've ever had. So that made it fun. My family was up here. We all had a great time, and I want to give kudos to our staff and the staff at Visit Estes Park for doing a great job with the tree lighting, and it looks great out there for the holidays. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Trustee Eigel. Frank, quick.
Thank you, Frank.
Sorry.
And Mayor, I want to follow up a little bit on public comment because I think that it's an opportunity that as hard as we try to communicate how the system works and how things go, that 3 minutes can feel so limiting. And I watched that tonight here. It's really hard to communicate with the community. So I want to share with the community in this moment, following that attempt to really share some emotion with us, that there are a lot of ways to reach out to the trustees. And those are trustee talks that are unscripted, wide open for an hour. You can talk about anything you want. Email is really an effective way to communicate. Catching somebody in person is an effective way to communicate. I make appointments with people, and I know that all of the trustees here do the same thing. So I think that people that are elected here are very reachable outside of the 3 minutes public comment. I think you got to practice for that 3 minutes and really have a high impact statement when you come in. So I want to encourage people to prepare for that because we want to hear what they have to say. My report is brief. It has to do with police auxiliary. Blue Santa is underway. You hear about it sometimes, but you don't really know what it's about. It is focused on the elderly and homebound segment of our community. This is organized and executed by the police auxiliary and the police department. This year, they'll reach 94 residents with some life necessities and some gifts. It's directly funded by the community. People that live in Estes Park fund this project. Donations can be made from the town's website, estes.org. Choose the police department page, then choose the Blue Santa button, and it will guide you through making a donation if you want to. Deliveries this year are December 13th. It'll be police auxiliary, sworn officers, administration, support staff, and their families. It's a good outreach every year by that group, in addition to all the things they volunteer to do. There is an opportunity to chat with the police department staff when they're not parked behind you and choosing the time and place that you will talk with them. But you can come to chat, coffee and tea with the PD. That's what they call it. It is the first Thursday of every month. It's in this building in the foyer. The next one is December 4th, next week, 4 p.m. They have a few snacks and casual conversation. Good opportunity to connect with that group who is influential and very important to our community. Finally, a couple of acknowledgements of service. The current commander, Bill Bradford, is leaving after 11 years in that role. He will stay with the organization, with the auxiliary, but he is stepping down from the commander. Julie Lee will take his position. And a couple sergeant promotions, Jim Bernard and Roger Kelling. So thanks to the people who serve our community through that organization. They save a tremendous amount of money for the town in the services they provide. They're a very professional, effective face for the police department. It's a softer approach than perhaps a sworn officer with all the stuff on their belt. They're kind, helpful, and I sure appreciate them the more I get to know what they do. Thanks for the time for the report.
Thank you. Yeah, Claire Mollet and the tree lighting ceremony. Claire from Estes, she's the best. I wanted to mention Michael Young also, great kudos. I had a chance to go to the sneak peek of the parade floats. I just think every year he kind of evolves that process and creates wonders with a remarkably small budget for what the output is, and it's incredible stuff and should be a great event on Friday for the Catch the Glow. I attended the Fire Board meeting here this week. I wanted to mention I still feel that they're taking a lot of steps in the right direction. The interim chief that they have, Warren Jones. Is that it? Warren, yeah. He presented a great plan of his 3 buckets of the things that he can accomplish in the 6 or so months that he's here, the things that he can start, but will have to be passed to the full-time chief and, or permanent chief. And then the things that they'll put in a holding pattern until there is a permanent chief. And he really has great depth of experience, seems to have a lot of wisdom, a very broad administrative view, understands operations and administration, and is taking the right tack. It looks to me like they are taking very good steps to move forward, and we love to see that. We want to get back to a very stable fire department. It'd be a wonderful thing. The town doesn't own the fire department, but boy, we love to have a healthy fire department, just like we love to have a healthy hospital and school system and all of the above. All of that being said, we can move on now to the town administrator report. Town Administrator Mahalik.
Mayor, nothing this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. God, I talked longer than anybody. That's a rarity. The consent agenda. Read consent agenda in full. Okay, I will. Item 1, expenditure approval list, bills. Item 2, town board meeting and study session minutes dated November 12th, 2025. Planning, number 3, Planning Commission minutes dated September 16, 2025. Item 4, letter of support for the Colorado Parks and Wildlife non-motorized trail grant for State Highway 7 Trail ADA improvements and Community Drive Connector Trail. Are there any items that any member of the public or the town board requests to have removed from the consent agenda? I see none. I'll take a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Trustee Hazelton moved to approve the consent agenda as written. Trustee Brown seconded. We can vote. Consent agenda approved as written. We'll move on to action items. We have one action item. Item 1, Resolution 125, officially scheduling the regular municipal election for April 7, 2026, presented by Town Clerk Williamson.
Thank you, Mayor. Some of you might remember this being on the consent agenda prior to this, at least Deputy Town Clerk Beers informed me that's what we did. But I wanted to bring it forward just because there's a few of you that are sitting on this board that might not have the history of how we do this. So by statute, I'm required to come before you to set the official date. The date is set by statute as the first Tuesday in April on even years. So that will be April 7th, 2026. It's hard to say that. I can't believe 2026. So I'm here today to officially do that. Some of the other things that need to be done through that resolution is determine how we want to conduct this election. So whether or not we want this to be a mail ballot election or a poll election. We haven't done a poll election since 2014. That was the last one we did, and we only did that because there was some confusion in the statutes at the time. They were making some changes, and it wasn't clear to us whether or not we could do a mail ballot election that year. So we have been doing mail ballot elections for quite a long time, but that is something for the board to consider tonight on the type of election. I will also note that we do tend to get higher turnout with a mail ballot election than a poll election. And I can go into more detail if you like on that. You're also setting with this resolution the town clerk as a designated election official, which means I will run the election with the help of my election judges. It also sets that fee, that hourly fee that we will pay our election judges. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to make sure. Oh, and the fact that we will use electronic equipment to actually count the ballots. Again, this election for the public is currently for 3 trustees. We have Mayor Pro Tem Zenak, who's term limited. We have Trustee Hazelton, who is finishing her first term and can run again. And then we have Trustee Brown, who is completing a partial term, 2-year term. So those 3 seats are up for election at this next election. Any questions I can answer for you related to this resolution? No, you're just going to run for mayor next, right?
What's the cost difference between a poll and a mail-in?
It's really going to be the cost of mailing the ballots, producing the ballots and mailing the ballots. So that mailing cost, I believe it's going to be 55 cents a ballot this year. We have about 4,000 ballots that we will mail. So, not sure what that math is exactly, about 2,000, yeah.
What's the cost of an in-person ballot?
So the election itself, if we do it as a mail ballot election, is roughly $35,000. So minus the mailing, it's really the only savings that you would see in that cost, because we'd still have to produce the ballots, and we still have to have the
So
election
it costs
judges.
$2,000 more to do mail-in. And what happened to combination? Didn't we used to have the opportunity to do combination election? We could get a mail-in ballot or?
Well, poll election or a mail ballot, you always have the ability to get what they call an absentee ballot. So that's maybe what you're thinking of, is that combination. But you have to request, in a poll election, you have to request that mail ballot, whereas in a mail ballot election, everyone who is a registered voter, who's an active registered voter, gets a ballot.
Do you have any sense that people want an in-person?
I
Do you
have,
as the town, use the town clerk?
I, as a town clerk, I find that mail ballot elections are more efficient for me to run, and we get a higher turnout.
Sure. And do you have a sense of community sentiment? Is there a desire for an in-person election?
I have not received any comments regarding holding a poll election.
Anything to the town in general, do you know, that you would have heard? Okay.
I mean, the only thing I can note to you is staff and I were talking about the current or the recent poll elections that were held by the rec district, the fire district, I'm trying to think, and hospital district, which does mail. Yeah, but the ones that did poll, they had very low turnout. I think they had about 10% turnout at best.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I see no other questions. Is there any public comment on this? I see no public comment. We can take a motion.
I'll move the approval of Resolution 100-25, setting the regular municipal election for April 7th, 2026.
I'll second.
Trustee Lancaster moved to approve 125. Mayor Pro Tem Sinek seconded. We can vote. Approved. We're on. Before we go to our last item, I want to thank Officer Watson for being here for our security. Thank you. Take all the pizza you want, cannoli, whatever. Help yourself.
Mayor, if I could just take one more moment to plug the fact that we will be holding a candidate forum on January 6th in this room at 6 p.m. We'll also be sending out public information related to that, but I thought I'd take the opportunity for anyone who might be interested in running for trustee for the town, that we will hold that event on January 6th for those that are interested in learning more.
Thank you. We'll move on to our one report and discussion item, organizational housing plan update presented by Manager Bangs. You had an office full of kids today.
I did. No school this
Yeah,
week.
it's lively.
Ironic. All right. Well, this evening, I am here to discuss the organizational housing plan. The original organizational housing plan was, and it's a plan for addressing our own town employee housing needs. So to be clear, this is just for our own town staff employee housing. The original plan was drafted based on an employee survey that was conducted in April 2023. An ad hoc committee led by the town administrator drafted the original plan based on the feedback of that survey as well as the housing needs assessment that was conducted around the same time. Since then, I did provide an update of that original plan in 2024. Both of those documents were in your packet this evening. So my role is to continue to analyze and assess the need for housing for our own town employees. And when looking at 2025 and inventorying the need and supply, which has changed dramatically in 2 years, and also working really closely with the Estes Park Housing Authority on strategies to address the various needs, staff came up with a creative and unique proposal that we are presenting this evening that we'd like some feedback on. What we're asking the town board this evening is, should the town explore a formal agreement with the Estes Park Housing Authority for the transfer of town-owned property at 179 Stanley Circle Drive? This is a piece of property that's been brought to you all a few times in the last few years. The town has started on pre-development work of this at this property, and the Estes Park Housing Authority is acting as the developer of this property. Going back to our present situation, since the original draft of the housing plan, like I said, there's a lot of changes have happened. The plan demonstrates the need for all housing across the board, including short-term housing, what we would call transitional housing, so employees that are trying to move into town roles but need housing while they seek other housing, midterm housing, and then long-term housing for purchase was a big feedback item we got from that too. So as you know, the town has made great strides in the pre-development of both the 179 Stanley, which is specifically for employees, and then Fish Hatchery, which we had included in the organizational housing plan to include some employee housing units. Currently, the town supports employees through a mix of master leased units. So beginning in 2025, based on the organizational housing plan, we did master lease through four private landlords. We also have town-owned units. There's a few units out at Fish Hatchery that the town still owns that employees are able to live in. And then we also take advantage of the Estes Park Housing Authority's master lease option, which is available for employers across the Estes Valley, which places us on a wait list. And as units become available, the town is notified, and then we're able to match employees to those open units. We have 2 of those wait list positions, which are at or near the top of the lists. We haven't, frankly, had to use them the last year or so because we've been able to utilize our either master lease options, town-owned options, or employees have been able to just go straight to the housing authority and access housing because of the increased supply. So the town, again, remains vigilant in evaluating the needs for housing for its employees. We look at coordinating with the housing authority on all sorts of strategies, including strategies to house our own employees. The growing inventory of EPHA managed workforce housing has really begun to ease the demand for town managed units. Long-term housing is more available now than it has been in the past, although those transitional or short-term, medium-term employee housing needs continue. So the town continues to need flexible housing options for employees. So while the market's changing, town continues to assess our inventory. We looked at our 2025 organizational housing plan and updates and really identified those assets of 179 Stanley Circle Drive and Fish Hatchery. We looked at how we coordinate with the housing authority and looked at either annual funding to the housing authority to reserve units for town and employees. So kind of requesting taking that master lease a step forward or a step further and asking for, we're just holding units that may or may not be vacant but are available at a drop of a hat if we need transitional housing or we need to plop someone in there. Second strategy would be a long-term arrangement where the town provides land and capital to secure permanently reserved units, and that's what we're looking at tonight. So we're proposing a partnership with the Housing Authority that would strengthen workforce housing opportunities for the town while also advancing the mission of the Housing Authority. So we're presenting the transfer of 179 Stanley Circle Drive. It's a similar allocation of resources going to employee housing with the same land and money dedicated to the development of 179 Stanley Circle Drive. The development as it's being presented now in its pre-development stage includes 12 workforce housing units. This proposal would open up the availability of those units beyond just town employees. So right now we're building it just for our own employees. This proposal would open it up and increase the availability of workforce units to the general public. The town in return would then get 12 town employee units among the Housing Authority's various workforce restricted developments across the valley. The proposal offers more flexibility and efficiency among the various properties managed by the Housing Authority, reducing those vacancies and distributing town employees throughout the community rather than housing them all in one location. General advantages to consider, the management, including leases, rent collection, all of that oversight would be handled by the Housing Authority, where now we're divvying up all of that between HR and finance, me and directors just kind of collaborating and coordinating, trying to get individuals into these properties. The town's not a landlord. I think that's a huge advantage. Coordinating employees with housing will be a collaborative effort between the town and Housing Authority, and that would be directed by some of our own internal administrative processes. The town serves the current needs of its employees, so it's a quicker turnaround than what it would take to actually develop housing at 179 Stanley. We'd be able to get those 12 units reserved for our employees sooner than later, while also at the same time the Housing Authority would increase its portfolio of buildable land and capital for other projects. A disadvantage that's also listed in your memo would be the loss of direct control of the property by the town. So that would be over in the Housing Authority and their own housing supply. Could be next year, it could be years from now, and when they would actually want to develop that. So again, the staff believe that a partnership like this would really offer a cost-effective and strategic approach to meeting workforce housing needs for both the town and the community. By transferring readily developable property and funding to the Housing Authority, the town leverages housing development expertise, housing administration expertise, while accelerating access to employee housing. The collaboration complements the town's existing organizational housing program and transitional housing efforts that's been drafted in collaboration with the Housing Authority. So together, these efforts really demonstrate the town's ongoing commitment to supporting their employees. So, in conclusion, any direction for us to continue to explore this, the next step based on feedback would be to actually bring a draft of an agreement back to you that would be by ordinance. The Housing Authority and us would draft. Scott, Director Moulton is here to help answer any questions as well. And Attorney Kramer, they've worked through a lot of this as well, so they're here.
After the transfer, who owns the property?
The Housing Authority would own the property.
Outright?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it would be within their own portfolio.
As long as the word transfer was there, I just wanted to make sure of the end result.
Yep.
So I've got a couple questions for Dan up in cyberspace, wherever he is. The first one relates to in this plan, it states funding for housing development projects dedicated specifically to town employees poses challenges due to the fair housing law, which affects our ability to access federal and state grants. I'd like to understand that a little better and how the fair housing law applies, and also how it might apply to this proposal.
Yep.
Trustee Brown, great question. I don't know the answer to that. That's something I would need to discuss with staff. I don't have any particular Federal Fair Housing Act concerns in mind with a property for town employees.
I can take a crack at that. So we went for a couple DOLA grants, and because the housing wasn't available to the general public and it was only for our own staff, we aren't eligible for those grants.
Okay, so there's certain grants that.
They
will
have to be
unavailable.
available to the public. We can't isolate a certain population, let alone, only our own staff as being tenants of those units for specific funding. Is
And,
that correct? Yeah.
okay, would this proposal affect any other financing that the housing authority might have? Maybe you don't know. yet
So
either.
if this property was transferred to the housing authority, it would no longer just be town employee housing. It would be open to the general public, and therefore they would be able to go for more open funding opportunities, similar to, it'd just be town-owned land that they'd be developing on.
Okay. And I understand, I don't understand the details of it, but there's some history about Lot 4 that there was, my understanding is there were some people that thought it had to be approved by a vote to transfer that. I mean, is there any requirement of public approval of the transfer of the land?
Trustee Brown, no, I'm not aware of this property being used for a governmental purpose. So no, it would not fall into the section of the statute that would require a vote of the people. Lot 4 has its own whole history,
Yes.
and it was a vote of the people, if my memory serves, that required a Lot 4 sale to be approved by a vote of the people. It was a
Oh, it's an
multi-stage
initiative
process.
then, yeah, an ordinance of some sort. Okay.
Right.
All right, with those preliminaries out of the way, my only concern on this, I think this is actually probably a pretty good idea. I don't understand, the proposal for the transfer of the lot and $2 million. It seems like that's kind of a little bit out of the air insofar as that's apparently what the town has set aside, or maybe not set aside, but projected.
Years ago, the town board, through the budget process, created a budget reserve fund. So we do this occasionally. We'll use, it's essentially dedicated fund balance within the general fund. This was prior to 60, prior to any of the
Right.
broader housing conversations, and we set aside a budgeted reserve for investments in our own workforce housing needs, recognizing that we're one of the few organizations in the community that have a dual mandate to help address both the community's workforce housing challenge, but also our own. So this money, we have money set aside. It's not quite 2 million. So we would need to come back and look for the additional funding somewhere else and bring a budget amendment to the board. This is not in your current 2026 budget. So that's also part of this process, is figuring out how all the financing comes together into this agreement, which the board could consider, and along with the financing sources.
Okay, one more question, then I'll have a comment. Do we know of any other community that has done a similar sort of thing to this? Is this following some sort of pattern that some other community may have done?
I think as a transfer of property for housing, it's not unheard of. Transferring property with the exchange being units for its own employees, I think we could probably find something similar as a framework to work on, but there isn't something that we're copying and pasting right
Okay.
now.
So to me, I think the most controversial part of this will be any sort of priority given to town employees over the public generally. And that is going to be a big issue. And I can see the possibility, in fact, I would hope there would be the possibility that there'd be private employers that would like to do something similar to this. To me, it kind of makes more sense rather than a lump sum sort of deal, that there be, some sort of annual cost to maintain that relationship rather than an evergreen sort of thing. And something that could be competitive where private employers could do it. I've thought for a long time that the community's business interests should be coming together to help solve this and not relying solely on the housing authority or the town to deal with it, because it's really as much their problem as it is our problem. In fact, it's a bigger problem for them. And they've developed a number of alternative approaches, which, I credit them with, but this is one where I really think we need to engage the business community to figure out how they can fit into this. And then also, just to make it competitive, maybe it's you pay a certain amount a year, and you might even prepay it, crediting, let's say it's $200,000 a year for 10 years to make that $2 million up, or, the value of the property being contributed to. To me, that makes more sense than it could still be done as a lump sum, but just a credit for future usage of this, so that it's actually a market-based approach to this. And I'd also want to make sure, and Dan's going to have to do a little more work on this to figure out that there aren't any other legal hiccups with this. If this were simply a private parties, I don't see any problem at all legally for it. But I'm concerned as to, in the context of municipality, whether there might be something out there that might present a problem, and more in the context of the fairness to the other employers in town and their ability to access a similar sort of program. So I like the idea a lot. I think it's a great plan and a really better way to do this. And but we're going to have to figure out that aspect and fairness with potential applicability to private employers. And I'd really like to engage the chamber and private employers in this discussion, because this is an opportunity as well as something just for the town. It's an opportunity for the community generally, if we can figure out how to put this together.
I think one thing to consider is the permanence factor of the town giving up land. There's money coming into our community from other places all the time. There's not more land coming into our community. So I think that I don't disagree that it's not a bad idea to see if this could be replicated by any party, not just a public party. But I think the one thing that we need to consider is the land factor. And I would not want to have, just the financial factor. You would need, if you want to replicate this for private parties, the land would need to be part of the deal as well.
Well, and we could develop some sort of right of, an option to buy it back at some point or something like that. I think that can be addressed, but you're right. That makes it kind of different. It's not just money at that point, it's land. So I appreciate that, but that ought to be part of the discussion too.
We'll explore all of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify. So you're saying that that land would go to the housing authority permanently. It's not for a short amount of time. It's what they're going to own the land. Okay. So, and then we are also giving them $2 million over what time period?
I think that's for us to, as we said, there's almost $2 million in funding right now. I think we would have to go back and do some budgetary.
Yeah, we have spent some money on the development of this process. We started with just under 2 million. We also made a commitment to the town board that if this money, which you all appropriated for the purpose of developing 179 Stanley Avenue, were being to be considered for a different purpose, that we would bring it back for reauthorization. I would consider this a separate purpose, so we would want to get that budgetary piece reauthorized anyway, and and we would likely need to find that delta, whether that's in this budget year or a future budget year as part of the agreement. I think we would work out the financing piece of it as part of that draft agreement that we'd bring to the board for consideration.
So help me, I'm missing something somewhere. So they get the land, we pay them 2 million, and what we get in return is to be on a waiting list for 12 units.
We would have 12 units, but it would just be dispersed amongst their various properties rather than at one location. So when
Do
it
we
comes
own
to
those?
So when it comes to serving someone who needs a housing unit right now, we'd be able to
Right.
say, yep, there's one right over here at Beaverbrook, or there's this one. So we'd have that immediate need for housing met through those 12 units. It just wouldn't be at that one housing development.
I get that, and I like that idea. I think it has a good concept, but I can't wrap my head around, then do we own that unit? Does that
The
unit
housing
come?
authority would own all of them, and they'd
So why
manage
are we
and-
giving them all this?
We own the right to 12, to put our employees in 12 housing authority units, wherever those units may be. The housing authority is managing on their end. When we say, hey, you know, we have 11 employees, we have a 12th employee that we need to place, the housing authority is managing where that employee is placed. So we're purchasing the ability to at any time have 12 housing authority units for town employees.
Okay.
And the benefit to us is we don't have to build 12 units, maintain 12 units, manage or pay the housing authority to manage 12 units. We have contributed up front, and the housing authority is saying, yes, we will have a unit up to 12 when we call upon it.
Can you explain again the 2 million? I think that's where some of the misunderstanding is. The 2 million we were going to have to use to develop it anyway, correct?
Correct. We don't have to use it. The town board could say right now, stop developing this land. We're going to spend the $2 million or whatever, shy of 2 million,
Right.
1 point whatever on whatever you want to.
We're just
General
transferring
fund
it
money.
to the developer.
Correct. It's
by this
been
plan.
appropriated for the development. So the current process and approach would be the town building units for ourselves and then probably paying the housing authority to manage those units for us. What this proposal says is, well, instead of doing that, we'll give the housing authority, we'll transfer the land, they'll bank it, and we will spend the $2 million. We will grant it to the housing authority, and we will gain 12 units. We won't have to wait for those units to be built. We'll gain 12 units that we can put our employees in almost immediately. I'm sure there'll be a
But
ramp
what
up
is
period.
that 2 million for? I mean, I can see the land, the land's 12 units for 12 units. But why the 2 million? Is that we're not developing anything. So is that for their administration? Are we gonna pay administration on?
It's the equivalent cost of the units. So we're not purchasing units, we're not building units, so we're saving $8 million, $10 million. Scott, give me a nod, yes or no?
Little less than that. Your total development cost right now is probably around 7.5, rough estimates for the 12 units.
Okay, so 7.9, $8 million. So we don't have to spend that 7.9, $8 million to build the units. The housing authority at some point in the future could choose to spend those to put anybody in the community in them, but the town doesn't have to spend that to put our employees in them. So we save $6 million and gain what we want, which is employee units. So when we're hiring an employee or when an employee needs a place to live, we can say, hey, we have a place for you. You're gonna have to pay rent. You would have had to pay rent to the town, but we have a place for you.
Right, but we're losing an asset.
Correct.
We have no asset now.
Well, the asset we have is the 12 units.
Well, we don't own them. We have the asset of the ability. So that brings me to the other question is, let's say for some weird reason, the housing authority goes away. Where are we at?
If the housing authority, I'd have to research this, but the housing authority is created by the town. You
Right.
appointed their board. I believe Dan has his hand up and he's gonna wade in before I say we have to research it more, because he may know the answer. What happens to the housing authority
I mean,
assets?
I know I know all that, but where are we at?
So trustee Youngland, my thought has been on that question, that we would write this into an agreement that would run with the land. So even if the housing authority were hypothetically to go under, someone else took over the developments that the housing authority currently owns, This would be a right to use that property that would run with the land. So the town's right to have those units, to put our employees in those units, would be maintained.
That's what I wanted to hear. Okay, that makes more sense to me. So then there's no additional cost, administrative cost to the town for years to come on the management of, you know, the tenants moving in and out, paying rent to them dealing with it. There's no more additional cost to us. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yeah. There's been a lot of just duplicative efforts between the town and the housing authority, and having everyone going over to the housing authority would be much more efficient and cost effective.
Okay.
No additional costs in upcoming years that's not within the plan, no.
Okay, that's all for now. Thanks.
Yeah, at first blush, it sounds fair to me. Trade of 12 for 12, especially the nimbleness, is that a word, that comes with that. Our ability to be more nimble, because it's 12 for us at 179 yet to be developed, to 12 around the community seems even. I do think the devil's in the details, which is what's getting, I think, us tripped up a little bit, which, disclaimer, it's a fine line to walk that you have been told we would like to be at the initial stages of conversations, but then you bring us big concepts, then everyone's like, but what about this? And it's like, so it's a fine line to walk, you know, we want to be able to weigh in early, but at the same time, it's not a finalized deal, so there's going to be a lot of that, like, pontificating.
Absolutely.
So I would say, for me, I definitely want to see it fleshed out, like how this would actually work, which is not really my job to figure out, thank God it's yours, but I'm still interested in it of like, okay, so is it 12 units in perpetuity, right? Like for forever, we always have 12 units. I can't imagine the housing authority is going to just let 12 units sit open, or, you know, we've got 6 occupied, let 6 sit open and wait for us to fill them, right? Like what happens when someone, how long does it take to get somebody in, like all of those kinds of things. What about the kinds of units, you know, the balance of how many bedrooms or whatever. So I am interested in the concept. It sounds like a good approach for us as an employer in this community, as well as a partnership with the housing authority to be able to help accomplish the other goals we've identified as community needs. But I definitely am looking forward to like when the brass tacks, like when the rubber meets the road and how that works.
Yep, I appreciate that. I think we went back and forth of how much detail we put into this and how much we really work through it before, you know, bringing it to you as a report and discussion item to get some feedback and direction on continuing to explore this and getting into the nitty-gritty details of, you know, is this totally, did we miss the mark completely, or do you want us to continue pursuing this? So there's a lot of ideas that we've had, and Attorney Kramer put his hand up, and I know Eigel. Trustee Eigel.
Whose turn?
I don't know.
Yeah, thanks, Manager Banks. The only thing I'd add to that is for Trustee Hazelton, we have started to think through a lot of what you just brought up. I agree that that's critical. We haven't presented all of that to you today. We're still brainstorming it with the housing authority, but we wouldn't have brought it forward if we didn't think that we'd be able to arrive at good answers to those questions. So those conversations have begun.
Okay, got a list here.
Okay.
What's the current appraisal on that property, 179 Stanley Circle Drive? What's the value of that? Does it matter?
I don't want to misspeak. I don't know what off
So
the top of my head.
we don't know what the value is of the land.
I'm not sure if we've done an appraisal on the land.
I just looked it up on the county assessor the other day.
Yeah,
know.
but so that's an important piece of land in the location, in its potential use, in vacating the right of way. There's a lot of reasons that would be a very valuable piece to the town, the housing authority, or a developer, depending on which way that piece of land goes. So I think a current appraisal would be a reasonable thing, unless that doesn't matter. And that's almost the point of it, is that are we really looking at the full value of this deal? I'm concerned about this at this time. What is the zoning of that property?
It's E1.
It would require rezoning
Yes.
to use it. Right, so that our community has just given us a very a strong message about rezoning property. And so I'm concerned about us moving on this right now in the current environment of conversation about how property is used and repurposed. And I don't want to give the impression that we're skirting maybe the sentiment of how properties are used. There was a pretty good public showing of concern about the use of that property. And if, as you described in your opening remarks, that there's not a strong demand right now for town units to house people. And if there is a need, the housing authority is meeting it, because in your words, you said the market has improved.
For long-term.
The availability
Correct,
has
absolutely.
improved. So we're in a different scenario than we perhaps were when we were talking about 12 units on that piece of property. And would it be reasonable or responsible for the town to develop a smaller development that fits into that neighborhood better and might have a better chance of being rezoned that was conducive to whatever the percentage is of people that live around that piece of property saying, yeah, we can go with that. So that's one of my thoughts, that we don't want to give the impression or actually skirt kind of the sentiment of that vote. I'm concerned about giving up an asset. I'm concerned about giving up town-owned property. I might be warmer to talking about a long-term lease or a long-term arrangement where if there was an issue with the housing authority, that property would revert to the town and the town would not lose control of it. We effectively are giving up that property and that control to a board that is not elected by the town, although indirectly through this board, they are under the citizens' control. Did I hear correctly that you said $8 million to develop 12 units?
Yes,
Dang,
yeah.
okay. The other, I've got like 10 other things, I'm just gonna give you a couple. So the one thing I wrote down when I first read this was, there is no more land. So to hear Town Administrator Mahalik say the same thing that I had thought and written down first, I'm really reluctant to give up land if we don't maintain some security in that, don't give up control of the land, lease versus transfer. I am curious about what requires a public vote. Is that a it's been used as a utility? What is the government use? What's that mean, though? Government use could go either way, because it is town-owned land that we use as a rental for town employees right now. That's government use. Or does it have to be utility? Or Attorney Kramer, do you have a?
I was gonna say, he's your guy.
Yeah, I know that you know the details. What type of use would trigger a public vote on the sale of public-owned land?
Trustee Eigel, I'm pulling up the statute now. There's a laundry list within the statute of the kinds of uses that would trigger a public vote. And when I say a governmental use, that for me, that's just condensing that list, but I can pull up the full list for you.
Well, I don't think you need to read it. I think if you've read it and interpreted it and you believe that it does not apply to this piece of property, then we have your interpretation, and I think that's reasonable for this discussion. But I'm going to still be reluctant to support this moving forward, especially because the things that you raised. We don't have a strong demand right now for employee housing. There's capacity in our community to house people long-term. I'm concerned about giving up our control of a new, well-located rental building that we can put an employee into today, even if it sits empty for some period of time, for the town to have that control instead of being on a wait list. Because as I read through the documents, they would not be guaranteed a spot. They would not be guaranteed a time frame of getting in. They would be on a wait list. And so I'm wondering, what are we giving you this valuable property plus $2 million for? So I do understand the idea, but I don't see how I could sell this to my neighbor. And that's where my reluctance comes from. I don't think that I could sell this to my neighbor, so I probably just need to understand it better.
You know, my understanding is that the town would be given priority of some sort to access units. So essentially we'd be exchanging land and money for priority rights to rent property.
Yeah, currently there's a wait list process that we are on as an employer. The transfer would probably have units available for us in a more immediate need rather than a wait list process.
You know, subject to having units.
Yeah, this
Still.
would be in place of us owning and managing our own. So we would want that flexibility as if it were our own.
So there are obviously a lot of details to this.
Yes.
The Housing Authority Board has not weighed in on this
Correct.
yet. And we don't know exactly what they're going to want out of this as well. You know, it sounds at first blush like they're just getting something for almost nothing, but it's not exactly that way. The priority thing is a big thing, and that's a thing of some concern. As I say, with the private, if this were all private parties, there'd be no problem doing that. I mean, you can exchange your rights for other rights all you want, generally.
Town attorney?
But yeah. Anyway, one last thing. I want to compliment you on your creativity in dealing with this, because this is a very interesting proposition with a lot of things to flush out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. And Trustee Brown, to your point about priority, I think that priority is a fair word to use for it. It would be a very strong version of priority in my mind. The way I would expect to write this up is that these units, while we wouldn't know necessarily in advance the exact location of the unit, we know that we have a right to that unit within a very quick amount of time, giving the housing authority just a little bit of notice to move a town employee in there. So that would be a right of the town, taking about as much time to put an employee in as we would if we did own the property. So I think it would be fair to say that we would own the right to use the unit. The housing authority would not be able to say, sorry, there are no units available, you'll have to wait. The housing authority would have to have procedures in place to give us a unit within a quick amount of time.
And those would be upcoming conversations that we haven't fleshed through.
So kind of a quick question, I think. Would this be contingent on the rezoning? Because if we, and I'm getting some more, right?
Yeah.
Because if we did it and then it didn't get rezoned, then we've lost out of basically, and housing authority has lost out of what we need to do. Besides the new law on the books, this besides that, say if that wasn't there, right? This is a question for Dan. If it was contingent on rezoning, how could this board even vote on rezoning? Because the contract for making the money would be contingent on the rezoning. You know, so it doesn't make any sense how we vote on, if it wasn't for the other law, which I'm just kind of deciding on the whole rezoning issue here. I don't want to sign anything, you know, or say we should do something and find out that's not gonna be able to use what we want to use it for. And if it came down to the way it used to be rezoned, how could we as a board vote on rezoning for something if it was, you know, or just have it not contingency and then it goes away and we don't get anything for it, or housing authority gets it. I guess we would still get the 12 units somewhere else. But
Yeah.
what would happen if it didn't go through? Will we still get our 12 units somewhere else? And then you're just out of luck, or what?
I'll let Attorney Kramer answer.
Okay.
Sure, Mayor Pro Tem, and I know staff is hoping not to dive too far into the rezoning questions under the new ballot measure. That's something that will undoubtedly come up in future sessions. We will have to confront those questions as we write any agreement with the housing authority. We'll need to figure out what kind of assurances they need. But for now, any rezoning of the property would be a future quasi-judicial decision of the board. We can't assume one way or the other what the board would do. On the other hand, as the property owner, the town board has instructed staff to work with the housing authority to move forward in development of the property. So that is the path we're on. In my mind, this is a variation on that path that I think could make sense. So that's the way we've got it framed for today. If this does move forward, we will need to hash that out in any agreement in such a way that makes sense for both parties.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's great. It was a great idea. I don't have a problem with it at all. I think Estes Park Housing Authority has the expertise to run this, to be landlords. We don't. It's not a core competence of ours. And for us to do that and duplicate their services has always been, doesn't make sense. And they could do a better job at this and be more efficient at it. I'm not parochial about the ownership. If we talked about selling it to a private developer, I'd have different feelings about it. But it's going from, really, as a citizen, it's going from my right pocket to my left pocket. It's still in public ownership. I still own it as a taxpayer, except that it's being owned by an organization that has the expertise to do this than an organization who's trying to figure it out on the fly. Not that staff doesn't do a good job, but being a landlord and running rental out properties is not our core competence. So I have no problem with that at all. The rezoning stuff, we're gonna have to address that one way or the other. Whether we own it or the housing authority owns it, we're still faced with the initiative and how that affects it and what goes forward. We don't know what'll happen. I don't think the ownership and who does it makes a difference. Either way, we're gonna be faced with this, with the dilemma and dealing with the rezoning in a quasi-judicial setting that we have a interest in, one way or the other. So that's gonna be awkward no matter what we do. And for some of the other stuff, I don't wanna get into the weeds. I don't think that's our role. I think from a policy question is that the devil is in the details, and thank God that's your problem. And that's why you pay you, and we come up with the big picture stuff.
Yep.
And I have faith in you and Travis and in Scott in coming up with things that'll work, because you want to make this work as well as we do, probably even more so. And just, we would answer the big policy questions. So, yeah, I think it's creative. I think it's a good way to do it, and
Thank you.
I have no problem with it.
I agree with every sentence, word, syllable, and letter of what Trustee Lancaster just said.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
That was just to get my number in the consensus that we've got.
Can you talk to my wife sometime?
Do we have any other questions or comments? I think we've made the broad spectrum of points on it. I think you have what you need.
Thank you for the direction.
And certainly when we get into consideration of an actual ordinance, the rubber in the road will come in contact. Okay, any other additions from anyone? Well, happy Thanksgiving to all, and to all a good night. This session is adjourned. God, that new haircut does look good on camera, so.